everyone, today we are taking a look at the Sub250 Ready to Fly kit. Yeah, it comes with everything you need in one little box. That actually inside this box is a case that zippers shut and has a handle on it, so you have everything you need to carry. It does come with everything you need, including a USB-based charger as well as two 530 milliamp 1S batteries. Now, one note about the batteries is they are G&B 27, which if you've been around for a while, you know that G&B made that connector originally, and now they've got a new A30 connector. What's important about this and this particular quad is you can buy batteries that have the A30 connector and use them with this G&B 27 connector that's on the quad, but you can't buy G&B 27 based batteries and use them on an A30 base connector. So A30 works on this, but G&B 27 won't work on others that have the A30 on the drone. Something to note there. Also, I have reviewed this quad before, the WhoopFly16. I've got a full review on it. So this review will be more about the kit itself. I will link the video to the WhoopFly16 down in the video description, as well as play a sample here as I talk about the fact that this is Express LRS, which I think is a very good thing. For the longest time when it came to Ready to Fly kits, they used to be FR Sky and they used to be D8 mode, which might not mean anything to you if you're getting started or doing your research. The takeaway from that is it wasn't good as far as range. It might work close in, but once you try to get more than 50 meters out, you'd likely experience a failsafe. But the WhoopFly16 is a very capable quad, but when you're starting out, you're probably not going to be flying in rate mode or angle mode as I am in this video that I'm showing you. But you'll probably start out in angle mode, and for me, angle mode is a little bit foreign because I've been flying in acro or rate mode for quite a while, especially here indoor in the house. So I am going to be attempting to fly this in angle mode. So those of you that might be veterans and have seen many videos on the channel, you might get a laugh out of this, but if you're just getting started and this is your first video of mine you've seen, take note that I'm not trying to impress you with my flying. Look at the other video if you want to see how I normally fly. The rest of the kit, I have seen this called a rebranded radio. I think the other two parts have been rebranded. I don't actually know who the original vendor is. The main takeaways from the radio, and one of the things that we'll be testing is the precision of the gimbals, specifically when it comes to flying inside. If you don't have good precision, or if you don't have relatively smooth gimbals, it can make flying less fun than it should be. We've seen some radios in the past that were more toy grade, less hobby grade. So far from a feel, this is plastic. There are no secondary materials on it. It's all plastic. Well, I guess secondary metal switches, but that's pretty stock. Inside the battery tray is inside the battery compartment is a tray for two 18650 batteries. That's the one part you need to buy. You should be able to find those at quite a few retail stores locally. Don't even need to be something specialized. My understanding is, even though I buy all mine online, 18650s can be had all over the place. You can also plug in a 2S LiPo if you happen to come across one of those. Maybe you have some RC cars or something like that. Has a balance lead for a 2S LiPo that you can plug into this. It has all these switches on the back side here. Hopefully you can see that. They're all labeled up. So that tells you on this particular quad, this is the one that arms the quad and gets you ready to fly. That's really the only thing you want to be concerned with to start with. You don't need a computer. You don't need to download the Betaflight configuration app. You don't need to, install that and worry about drivers, because sometimes that can be an issue on some machines, is getting the drivers so you can plug in USB. You'll probably get into that later, but just fly it by default as it is until you get used to things. Don't change anything on the quad right away. Have some fun first. Another component that comes with the kit is these goggles. These goggles have been around for quite a while as well. They come under many different brands. They have a 3-piece head strap. And one thing to note about these, especially if you're like me and you wear glasses, is I can't focus clearly on the lens. Yes, I can see enough to fly, and I'm going to do it in here. But if you wear glasses, it might not focus very well. There's kind of a couple options for those of us that wear glasses and this goggle. Not just this one, but really anything of this style. If you can find glasses that fit inside, mine don't fit in neatly. I think it could squeeze in there a little bit, but it would probably pinch on the side of my head. But something else, if you have a headset or a magnifying set like this, I think these were $10 or $12 off of Amazon. I use these for soldering, but they have these little lenses that come with it. They come in a little kit like this. You can take one of these lenses and possibly just hot glue it up into the goggles to bring it into focus for you. So you have to spend some time and money, not a lot of money, but probably more time than money, in order to make these goggles work for you. They do have a DVR, which is nice for reviewing your footage if that's something you like to do, or if you like to share it with others, it has that as well. It does come with these antennas, which is okay, but if you're in an environment such as a metal building, or you have lots of what we call multipathing, circular polarized antennas will help, as well as if you were to put one on the quad. But for this quad and those antennas, it'll be fine. I've flown these many times, but to improve your reception, if you find there are any difficulties, first thing you can do is change out the antennas. Here's the button assortment across the top. I can't quite drive this from backwards here, but these buttons should be relatively self-explanatory and tell you everything you need to know. For the main thing, it's about powering on the goggles, which is this one over here. If you were to find that your quad and your goggles were on different channels, they do have an auto search feature over here. And then of course we have a record button for our DVR over here, and there'll be a red dot in the screen that indicates the DVR is on, and when it's flashing, it's recording. So let's get set up to fly and give it a go. Okay, so I've got the quad all plugged in here, and I've got our radio on with a little red light and the goggles all set to go. We're gonna fly it around in the Lango mode. All right, so we've got air mode on. That's why the props are spinning. You can see the bottom right hand corner, it says angle mode, and it gives us our run time, and then our battery voltage is in the lower left. Let's go. So far, oh, little bump. I'm not seeing any deficiency as far as the gimbals not being very precise or being too sloppy or loose. If anything, for someone like me that has been flying for a while, you might have a preference, but this is about those that are buying ready-to-fly kits, those that don't have a lot of FPV experience. Let's go downstairs and see what the reception's like. Also, it makes it more quiet so that I don't have to talk so loud. So in the goggles, the reception's doing pretty well. I am flying Raceband 8. I set that intentionally on the quad. Raceband 8 gets its up above Wi-Fi signal in our home. Gives us our most clean signal. Whoa. And as I said, I can't focus cleanly. Whoa. Oh. Alright, now I got a turtle mode. Let's see if I can figure this out. First, crash after flip. Now arm. And we flip. And we turn off that, and now we rearm. Let's see if I can back out of here. Okay, and we're off again. I can't remember even what I was saying. Oh, about the video reception. Raceband 8 gets us up above Wi-Fi, which gives us a little bit of a better, cleaner opportunity for best possible video reception. I fly that whether I'm inside or out. But if you're flying with others, you may find you need to go to a different channel. Which you can do with just the radio. You don't have to plug in the quad or anything like that. There are stick commands available through Betaflight. Many tutorials all over the web that you'll be able to find how to do that. So you may not have seen it if you are looking at this video for the first time, but this quad actually flies pretty nice, and the thing that I think touts it as a really good fit for a ready-to-fly kit is the fact that I believe the frame to be very, very durable, because in my review, my original review, that is linked down in the video description, I beat it up pretty handily and it just kept going and kept going. Getting a low battery voltage warning, and oftentimes with these little 1S batteries we'll get what's called battery sag. And then we compensate for that on the back end of the flight by just flying even with the low battery. We want to end our flight and disarm the quad and have our battery come back to about 3.5 volts. While the quad is flying, it's under load, so the battery isn't at that much, but it will recover from what that battery sag after we disarm. I'm going to stop here at about 3.4. That should be about right. Yeah, we're getting there. Let's go ahead and bring this in. That's about what I expected for flight time, 324. Uh-oh. Okay. Let me unplug this and then we can talk more about it. Before I unplug it, note the battery came up to clear up to 3.66 volts. And we had a flight time of 3 minutes and 31 seconds, so we probably could have flown that very easily another 10 to 15 seconds. Of course, you do have to put up with the battery voltage flashing at you, and it doesn't keep your battery at storage voltage, which is 3.8 or 3.85. Something to keep in mind. So as I fully expected, the quad fly is pretty nice. The goggles work as you would expect on this, and the radio, I think this might be my first time flying this particular kind of radio. I do think the GepRC Tiny Go kit may come with this same sort, at least style of radio. One thing I did notice when I did my first initial test hover, as well as when I was flying around, because of the way I fly, it does have a hook here to where you can put a lanyard on it. The lanyard hangs around your neck, so it just kind of rests from your neck and balances on your chest. I don't use one of those because I sit to fly. This is kind of my normal position when I fly inside the house, right in this very chair. But with this texture as well as the shape back here, because I pinch to fly, or hybrid pinch, whatever you want to call it, I just kind of hold the radio with my index or my pinky finger and my ring finger in the back, and then I just kind of rest the rest of my fingers up top here. That with that curve, I can hold this radio fairly well, but of course if you thumb, if you feel like this, turn around all the way there, I would think you'd find those curves just as useful. That's where I find my fingers going when I'm putting my thumbs on the sticks. Of course, the antenna does remove for storage purposes or putting back in the case. In both the goggle and the radio cases, you'll need to take the antennas off to get them to seat back into the case very neatly. There is a USB port on the top of the radio here, but that is just for charging. I plugged it into my computer, and I would get a COM port on it, but it wouldn't recognize it as a human interface device. So I don't think you can use this radio in any sort of FPV simulator on a computer. That is one downside to a ready-to-fly kit, is that you can't use it with a FPV simulator. I could be wrong about that, but like I said, when I was looking at my computer and I plugged it in, it only showed it as a COM port, which would give us the ability to flash the firmware on this, and I think that's going to be very specific in getting that firmware through Sub250, the company itself. Typical switches, we find these same sort of switches on all the radios. As far as the gimbals go, I didn't have any troubles flying with them. I do have a preference, because of my history in flying with different radios, that I would like the gimbals to be looser, but these are pretty smooth and they're not very notchy in the center. That's one of the things that I've always found with gimbals, that if they're very notchy in the center, that tends to make my flying less smooth, because I do fly mainly in angle or excuse me, in rate mode or no stabilization, whereas angle mode is always, you know, it's always trying to stabilize the quad. It's always trying to level it out. So there are lots of flying video tutorials about angle mode and what you have to do, so I'm not going to get into that. This is just about this particular kit and the experience. I actually kind of could focus better than I expected to in the goggles. Again, there are some opportunities to DIY some solutions if these didn't work for you, whether it be to buy a pair of cheap glasses from Walmart or CVS or wherever you can that would fit inside here, or maybe you just mount them in here. I've heard of people doing that as well, taking a secondary, less expensive pair of glasses and just mounting them right into their goggles so that they can see the screen clearly. This is not the screen right here. This is actually a Fresnel magnifying lens. The screen's actually in the back. And I believe this has a 2000 milliamp battery in the backside as well. So you have like screen and then battery right behind it. So it is a little bit nose heavy, but you know, it's got a large cutout. It doesn't rest on my nose, at least it seemed to be resting on my nose, but our noses are all different. Oftentimes when it comes to goggles, we'll talk a lot about light leak. I haven't found myself to be very sensitive to it unless I'm looking for it. So when I review goggles, I will talk about light leak, but what I do is I put the goggles on and I look for the light leak. As soon as I turn the screens on and I start flying, I have not found any goggle to have such dramatic light leak that it was distracting, so I couldn't focus on the screen that was inside. But everyone's different again. I think one of the last things to talk about with this particular kit is the price. Well, I believe the price comes in around $250. So of course, when it comes to a ready to fly kit, there's always aspects of the kit that are meeting a price point or a budget. So that's something that you have to decide, because eventually you're probably going to want a different radio. This is Express LRS inside. It will work fine in this particular setup. You'll get good range because Express LRS is really good. You don't seemingly have any configurability that I'm aware of outside of being able to potentially bind this to other quads that have the same version of Express LRS. Remember, the same major version of Express LRS. So say version 2.0.1, version 3.1.1, the very first number is the major version. Those have to match on both the radio and the quad. I didn't bother to look into what version this is because it's very likely that by the time you even watch this, it could change. That's how fast Express LRS is moving, and companies are moving pretty fast with it as well. So radio would probably be the first step in an upgrade path. Once you get comfortable with the WhoopFly16 and you kind of decide, yeah, I'd like to improve my fun experience with FPV, I want to go with a different radio. There's a whole host of them on the market, and most of them are pretty budget friendly. You're looking at maybe $130 and less for most of the radios, at least the ones that I've used. Somewhere in that $100 to $130 market. You can find some pretty good radios that people love for around 70 bucks too. The next upgrade that you might do is goggles, but quite honestly, if you find these goggles work for you, you can focus on them, you're comfortable in them. I've seen people use box goggles for years and years and years. So I'm hesitant to mention that as a possible upgrade path from this kit, because you could be perfectly happy with this and use it for years. I don't see too many people sticking with ready to fly radios. I see most people upgrading their radios. So those are something to consider, and I believe, again, the price point comes in at around $250. It might be $259.99, that sort of thing. If I have any sort of coupon codes, or I find whatever shops is carrying the Sub250 WhoopFly16 ready to fly kit, I will link them down in the video description. If you have any other comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the comments section below. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching. Look at those good-looking kids up there. Hard to believe those are mine. Thought it'd be fun to film somewhere else for once. Hopefully this works out.